Great. Hello, SUGCON. How are you? Okay, this is how it works. I say, hello, SUGCON, and you respond enthusiastically. Hello, SUGCON. Okay, great. So I'm here to tell you the first most important thing. In every conference, you want to go to that talk that is like the best talk, and then you can go back and say you've been to the best talk. This is it. You've all chosen very well. After this, you can say I've been to the best talk. So you can leave and go drink some beer, and you can say to your boss, I went to the best talk at the whole conference. So you should feel free. I'm relieving you of your moral obligation. We're going to talk about journey mapping in real life. How many of you were at the last talk, at the kind of keynote, where they were talking about the experience of putting together the fake Sitecore world? Everyone? Yeah. So what's obviously missing in that is what do users actually want, and are you delivering it to them, or are you doing things that will creep them out? So we'll touch a little bit on that today. And then we're going to speak from our experience actually thinking about strategy and technology and trying to get strategy people to talk in a way that technology people will listen, and to get technology people to speak simply enough for strategy people to hear them. That was the right joke for this room, right? I made that joke for this room. Okay, great. A little bit about us. So my name is Paul Griffiths. I'm CEO, founder of MedTouch. We've been a Sitecore partner since 2010. We've delivered over 100 Sitecore projects from a variety of platforms, so I have a lot of experience with the technology. We actually designed our first personalization experience back when they called it DMS, was in 2011, so we've been thinking about this. And our market, which we won't talk a lot about, is healthcare, where there's a ton of sensitivity about what you know about me and decisions you make about me. So when we talk about why journey mapping is important to us, we've had to help our clients not freak out a bunch of patients. I am a Sitecore MVP ambassador, which means I'm old. I think that's what they do. It's like the Lifetime Achievement Award. I feel a little insulted by it. But in addition to what I do for the company that I run, MedTouch, I actually work for Harvard Business School, which is a small university in U.S. You guys? Okay, good. So Harvard Business School, and I coach entrepreneurs. So they actually have a worldwide program where they bring in entrepreneurs from all across the world, and I talk to them about digital marketing. So some of what I'm going to show you today, I've been actually working on the last year with a variety of different industries. And even though we're focused on one industry, which is healthcare, we're actually not going to talk too much about healthcare today. We're going to talk about the implications of journey mapping for a number of different industries. And I'll show you a model that might be helpful as you try to talk about journey mapping with other folks who are non-technical. Great.
And I'm Dan Persson. I'm the CTO at MedTouch. I go back and forth between digital strategy and technology. So I run our technology team, but I spend a lot of time thinking about how do you leverage those technologies to achieve the business goals of our healthcare clients, and some uniqueness to how we approach that and the data we gather and how we go about interacting with those technologies.
Super. I'm going to do, this is my one slide about who we are in the company, because otherwise we're not going to talk about our industry. Been around since 2004. We have a couple offices in the U.S. Our market is entirely United States. So when our experience with healthcare is in a specific market, in a specific context, I think the important thing is, we have experience with Sitecore as well as thinking about extending that through things like Salesforce. So we'll show you a little bit of that today. And that's my 1 minute on who we are. Whoops. Today let's talk about journey maps, and we realized we wanted to start with a question. First, is anyone from Sitecore here? Employed by Sitecore? Oh, great! Awesome. So we're going to pretend like they're not here for a minute. Here's the question. So show of hands, who has worked on a Sitecore project that aimed to use either context marking or personalization or DMS or XDB or whatever? Okay, raise them up. Okay, great. Now, so that was about, I couldn't count that fast, sorry. That was like 35. Okay, about half the room. How many succeeded? Okay, so about 50%.
Half that, yeah.
Half that. Here's what we found. There are a lot of concepts that are available, and people get excited at the beginning of projects. And sometimes the reason they pick Sitecore is because of this personalization. But most organizations, especially marketing organizations, are ill-suited to actually make journey maps work and to make personalization work. So I think we often are in the position where a client gets really excited, they think Sitecore is great, it's got all these great tools, and they don't realize how much they need to fundamentally change about the way they approach marketing to get that value. So that's our experience. Is that, I'm seeing lots of heads nod. Okay, so that's the conversation we're going to have. Let's talk about what a typical consumer journey process is. And I think in realizing it, it's a waterfall process. Here's the way it works. You start with analytics, then you might develop some personas, then you outline the phases of the buying cycle, then you map the full customer experience, then you analyze the roles, then you drive optimization, and actually it's a pretty cumbersome process. And because it feels important to an organization, they will sometimes complicate it, and the challenge with increasing complication is you're unlikely to ship code, and you're unlikely to ship something that's successful. So the longer this phase goes on, actually the worse the outcomes are. And so some of our work is actually just teaching Agile marketing departments to think like Agile developers, and to say, try something small, ship it, test it, learn, do it again. And what we realize is most of the work that goes into customer journeys is a waterfall process. So what are the challenges? Buying cycles are complex. So we're going to talk a little bit about why journeys matter and how journeys map to activities. I think the important thing is a buying cycle that's complex means there's lots of opportunities to get it wrong. And if you get a buying process wrong, it can look like the funnel isn't working. It's actually something more complicated than that. Second, users can be in multiple places at the same time. So if I'm making a decision or several decisions, I might be really close to a transaction and researching something else, and if you think of me as one person, you might confuse me. Visualizing all the options is a challenge. Like, how do I even explain how to keep up with the amount of nurturing that I need to do for a personalization campaign? So I remember at another talk, someone was talking about how they had to lead their client to build a separate spreadsheet. This is service. Look at this. Thank you very much. They had to build a separate spreadsheet to help the client keep track of all the personalization that they had put into Sitecore. So that's complicated. And then the last is organizations are really typically built by departments, not by journeys. That if you think about how a business is organized, it has a billing department, it has a shipping department, it might even have a customer service department, but they don't work together to think about how to optimize the experience unless they're asked to. And so this is some of the opportunity that we see. So our solution, just to get it out of the way, we're going to talk about how to start with some small, simple journeys and string them together. So it's really starting to think about this more, again, as an Agile process, as an excuse to work with your customers to think about training them in an Agile methodology. Here is a really simple, and believe me, I actually mean, this is a simple consumer journey for our work. So we map this out for a client. So this is a healthcare context. But it's about what happens when an individual user has an individual experience in an individual place for an individual visit. And this is just the conceptual part. And if you were to take a step back, what happens is marketing departments tend to get excited by the idea of influencing this journey, and then they write it all down and they realize they don't have full control, and then they start to get depressed, and then they overeat, and then they feel bad, and it's a shame spiral, right? And then they come up with this, and they get to this place, and they feel happy, and they put it on a wall, and they never think about it again, right? And when people say, what's your process? And they go, look at this beautiful thing I did on the wall. And that's what they think the journey is. They think the thought work, they've now done it, or they've explained it, and they're done. That's because it's actually fairly hard to get here. So a lot of our work is helping marketing departments understand you can't just stop here. You need to actually measure and test and deploy these things. So we're going to talk about two concepts. I want to start with funnel marketing, because I think it's fundamental to understand why creating maps, journey maps, are so hard. So we're just going to talk really simply about marketing funnel. And what's the idea of a funnel? You drive activity from the top to the bottom. One slide. It's Good. I know. It's a good slide. You're looking at it, you're saying, wow, this is a beauty. This took me 30 seconds in PowerPoint, but I want to illustrate that concept. So if we talk about, there are these topics that if you're familiar with search engine marketing, there's things like tofu, right? So, what is tofu? Besides a really bland, somewhat vegetarian protein replacement. But what is tofu? Who knows what tofu is? Yes. No, I want you to answer the question. This is not a leading question. What is tofu? Hey, friend in the back. What is tofu? What does that acronym mean in digital marketing? Food? Okay, food. Who knows in a digital marketing context? Top of funnel. Yep, they call it the top of funnel activity. So what are some top of funnel activities? It's blog posts, it's social media articles, it's shareable infographics. It's the things that get people excited, right? You're not converting someone, but you're trying to get someone to talk about you. Photographs, ebooks, sometimes it's podcasts, sometimes informational microsites. It's the stuff that you build that is about brand or is about buzz. It tends to be hard to measure, but in a successful funnel, you're drawing people in so you can increase their conversion journey and eventually get them to buy something. That's what tofu is. Now, those of you who saw my first slide, you know that there's mofu. So what do you think mofu is, besides Samuel L. Jackson in Pulp Fiction? I mean, I had to put that up. I had to. I'm sorry, I had to. What is mofu? Middle of funnel activity. Okay, awesome. So now we're moving a little faster. Educational resources, case study, white papers, software downloads, discounts. It's that, okay, I'm actually having a transaction with you. For commerce organizations, it's buying something. For consulting organizations, submitting an RFP. So the middle of the funnel activity is now I've created a transaction with you, I've given you something, I've got something. That's the middle of the funnel activity. Now you notice there was something at the bottom, BOFU, and aside from what Neo learns when he wakes up from the Matrix, I know it was an old reference, but we tried for it. So BOFU is bottom of the funnel activity, and this is post-purchase info, it's training videos, it's customer support, it's add-on sales, it's the stuff at the bottom. And the reason I talk about them as activities is if you think about a large organization, they have social media interns at the top who are tweeting, a really robust customer service engine in the middle, for the middle of funnel activity, and not a lot of people thinking about after the purchase unless it's kind of customer recovery. And so organizations are not organized equally and don't give equal weight to these activities. They tend to bias towards the purchase, the during, right, the middle of the funnel, and they don't think a lot about the beginning of their end. But if you take a step back and you think about the transition to going from activity-based marketing, which is this funnel, to customer marketing, you have to change the way the organization thinks. So let me give you some examples. I had a fun time thinking about examples of bad tofu, mofu, and bofu. So here they are. I was in an airport in Reno, Nevada, and some guy paid for an ad in an airport. And let me just say, for those of you listening at home on the podcast, it says, when you need a lawyer, search in Google Colors, so you got it, don't use Bing, but search Joey Gilbert Law. And he's standing there like this with his fist. I have no idea what this is about. So this is bad top of the funnel marketing. I don't know who he is. He's not really sure. He's got me a little interested. But it's the when I need a lawyer. So think about that. I'm driving, I wreck my car, maybe I've had too much to drink, I panic and I think, oh, I know, I need to go to Google, not Bing, and search Joey Gilbert Law, and when you do, this is what you get. Joey Gilbert Law, fighting for your clients, so he's a former prize fighter, and he's got a big phone number. He's got a website and a phone number. He doesn't even put it on the stupid ad. I mean, he paid like $10,000 for this thing. This is bad top of the funnel marketing. If you go to the site, it's completely disconnected. Different photos, different everything. My favorite moment, I hope he won't beat me up for this, but if you're listening, Joey, you spelled reviews wrong. You say it's the most important thing that you get from the clients. Fix the typo. Please don't beat me up when I'm in Nevada. Okay, so it's bad, this is a bad experience. I don't take him seriously. If I need a lawyer, he might be a great lawyer, but I don't take him seriously. These are the right activities, but it's the wrong experience. Okay, example 1. Example 2, bad mofu. This is some analysis that came out recently about reasons for abandonment during checkout. And I thought this was really interesting because look at what happens. Number 1 reason someone doesn't buy something, too expensive, okay? 60%. Number 2 is the site wanted me to create an account. This is during checkout. It's the right transaction, so the business wants you to create an account. If I'm a user buying something, there's probably some value in me creating an account, but it's asking me to do it at the wrong time. If I'm ready to check out, I'm ready to give you the money, you don't say, I know you want to give me money, but first, let's talk about where you are. Okay, what's your favorite movie? Okay, what's your favorite color? Oh, can you prove you're not a robot, by the way? That would be really great. And then now I want you to sign up for this. So this is an activity that the organization wants badly, but they've sequenced it wrong. Bad middle of the funnel activity. Here's another great one. So this is picking on Boscov's this time. But what you see here is this is a shopping cart. And over here there's a short sleeve extra cotton polo. And it's an XL dark heather, but that's the wrong color. Or if you look down here, this is supposed to be a navy shoe, and it's bright red. So we know that some programmer said, okay, go grab the default image and display it at the size and put it on there. But it's missing a really important context. This is the kind of thing where maybe it doesn't matter or maybe someone didn't know, but it's out of sequence, right? I actually, at this point, I really need to be confident in what I'm purchasing. Bad middle of the funnel activity. This is my favorite one. This is bad bofu. This is at the end of the opportunity. I actually paid a bill, and it said, we value your opinion. Would you like to take a survey right now? Yes, I would like to take the survey. Not now, maybe later. And I clicked, not now, maybe later, and the survey disappeared. Didn't ask me when I wanted to take it. I was willing to take a survey. I just didn't want to take it right then. And this is at the bottom. So what happened is, in that organization, marketing went and said, where can I get a survey stuck on the website? Oh, I know. When someone has finished billing, they of course will want to take a survey then. And they put this on here, and it's terrible. I'm sure they're not getting the right data, right? It's the wrong activity at the wrong time. So when we talk about journeys, journeys are a way to smooth the funnel. So this is a picture of one of the ones that we've done. You can see that this is Sophia, and her journey, you'll notice, first of all, is not a beginning to an end, but it's a circle. And that's because if you want to build loyalty and consistent customer engagement, you're basically running a circle and a race over and over and over again. So journey are focused on people instead of activities. They have a before, during, and after. The before part is I decide, so I'm going to decide during this phase. The during is my decision-making process, and if you're relevant to me. And after is after I've made my purchase. So what does this look like? Well, each phase addresses a vital question. Before, do I know you can help me with my problem? I'm not sure, Joey, the fighter lawyer, if you can help me with my problem, but that's the thing I'm deciding. During, do you have what I'm looking for? Do you have the SKU? Do you have the color? Do you have the date that I want for an event? And then after, am I really happy that I made my purchase? How many times have you bought something and you were really happy, and afterwards you kind of didn't get enough information, or you like opened up the box and you started second guessing yourself? This is a huge hole in a lot of the experience that especially good marketing companies want to go after. And each phase requires an essential marketing technique that can be mapped to the funnel. So your before is really the tofu, top of funnel activity. You think about what are people looking for at the beginning. The middle is the during is the middle of the funnel activity, so all the transactional pieces. And the after is the bottom of funnel activity, or the bofu. So let me kind of bring it home, and I'll talk about the model, and Dan's going to talk in a few minutes about how you put that into a tool like SUGCON. Before the decide, the big test is credibility. Do I know you can help me with my problem? I want to know you're credible. And there are key questions. Do I know you exist? You might be great if I don't know you exist. How am I going to find you? Can we find each other? Like, are we able to make a match? Is there a logistical challenge? Do I imagine you have what I need? So do I think you sell or service my particular need? And the opportunity for using journeys in the before stage is really to grow your audience. This is where marketing organizations so focused on transactions fail to think about where the growth in their audience comes from. So what are some techniques? You know, online, blogs, and social media. Offline is catalog and print. And if those two things are not synced properly, if you're not thinking about omni-channel experience, you're going to create that dissonance. The during is really selection. Can I find what I'm looking for? Can you meet my selection criteria? Is it superior to my other options? Like, is it better than what I could do elsewhere on another site because I'm an educated consumer? And am I feeling what I need to feel to commit? There is you know, depending on the dollar amount that I'm spending, it might be an emotional decision for me, and have you satisfied that emotional decision? So the opportunity for journeys in the during phase is to improve your transactions. So what are some techniques there? Well, obviously SEM or pay-per-click, so people who are searching, but also coupons or point-of-sale enhancements. There's all these things in the real world that you can tie that journey together. And the last is loyalty. So am I happy with my purchase? Did I make a good decision? Do I know how it's going to work? Would I want to do that again? That's the difference between someone who's a fan and someone who's a detractor. And this is the opportunity to boost your loyalty. So what are techniques? Emails, notifications, and then in other worlds, events or secret sales. Think of how powerful it is if you bought something and then afterwards, a week later, you said, hey, now that you're a member, we have the secret sale. It's just available for you. That's the same message as a discount, but it sounds, and it's the experience of getting that offer is totally different. So if you knew where they were in the journey, you could offer those two different experiences. Same transaction, right? Same kind of funnel activity, but the experience will give you much better results, especially for loyal customers. So just to kind of recap, you can map activities to your journeys, and if you're struggling with explaining why this matters, then figure out, you know, in the organizations you're working with, is it the before part? Then you can start to think about content marketing. It's probably what they need. That's the skill set. If it's the middle part, it's probably demand gen. How do you get people to pick up the phone or transact? And then after, it's loyalty. And I think the hard part for most organizations is marketing is separate from fulfillment, is separate from who manages lifetime customer value. And getting all of them to work on a journey actually will expose you to more parts of the organization and give you better performance in all those sections. Because journey orchestration is frankly the new funnel.
And if we want to take that funnel and really apply it in Sitecore, we really want to take a look at those same stages and look at what are the relevant pieces of Sitecore that really help you as marketers leverage Sitecore to achieve that. So there are different components that fit a little bit, they vary, but they fit a little bit better at different parts of the funnel. And then also just noting that you may choose as a result of coming out of the bottom of this funnel to enroll them in that next funnel because you know something about them. So that starts to create those cycles of your journey. So at the tofu level, the activities are primarily happening outside of Sitecore. So this is hard to actually orchestrate those types of activities through Sitecore. So those are campaigns that are running, you know, those types of things that are happening off the site. The number one thing you want to do is identify the users when now they come to the site. You want to know where they came from. So you want to associate them with the source, with the campaign. You want to be able to segment those users. And you want to do that because that tells you something about how you're going to interact with them on the site, but it's also going to allow you to optimize your campaign investment. So once we start to track that, we can start to do things with that information. So the relevant components are campaign creator. This is really focused on Sitecore 9. Campaign creator as well as the Sitecore IP geolocation feature, right? So when it comes to attribution for campaign, the way that looks is you can enroll them in a campaign based on either a query string variable that happens. So when you create it in campaign creator, it'll dynamically create this parameter that you put at the end of your query strings for all of your ads. Or alternatively, you can actually do it associated with the landing page that you created. So what happens now is every time somebody comes to the site, we immediately have associated them with either a source that they came from or a campaign that we were running, and we now know something about them, and we can now treat them differently because we know that. We also have, and I kind of put this with this top of funnel activity, it happens when they land on the site, but another attribute we have available to us that's generally knowable is their geography. So with the Sitecore IP geolocation service, we can now know city or country or these types of things that help us not only know what they're interested in, why they've come to the site, but actually where they are. And we might have a different message for them going into the middle of a funnel because we know something about them. Then we move into the middle of funnel. And so in MoFu, what you have is activity typically happening in Sitecore, although it does move between channels. So it's not strictly the web channel. But we want to encourage conversion. And what we really want to do is focus on giving them the information they need to make that decision. So we need to find out what is it that they need to know, and how do we get them to move to that next stage to convert. And we want to identify anything more we can. As the user moves around the site, we want to learn more about them to further optimize that experience towards conversion. So the relevant features here are, of course, rules-based personalization in Sitecore, forms for capturing information, setting up goals so we know what's happening, as well as potentially integrating with tools like CRM to be able to take that knowledge that you have of somebody who's middle of funnel and actually leverage it across multiple platforms. So as you start to move into knowledge you might have through call center or through other things through the CRM, being able to do that there. So when we talk about rules-based personalization, the simplest way to start to engage people in the middle of funnel is we know that what campaign they came in on. We might know that this is their first time here, or they've been here many times. We know their geography, and we know what maybe they've done in terms of goals. So now we can start to set up rules inside of Sitecore. So the way this works is you have to have, for those of us who have had Sitecore a long time, sometimes that wasn't set up in a way that personalization is easily achieved. Most new sites are built around this idea of using a data source on your components. So when you have a data source on the components, you can start to change the content of that component to change the delivery of the message to the user. But all of these are available out of the box in Sitecore, so these are just really quick wins for now starting to create a conversation with the user to get them the information they need that might be different than the average user on your site. Forms are, of course, useful. So this is a Sitecore Forms module, so this is new in Sitecore 9. But really, we're looking at capturing information from visitors because we're going to augment the experience profile. So we want to know a little bit more about them. This might be the end of our goals. So maybe what we want out of them is to sign up for the newsletter, and maybe filling out this form achieves that goal. So maybe that is ultimately the bottom of funnel. Often it's sort of a stage on the way to something that we want more of. And so we can trigger goals as a result of these forms as well. These goals get used for tracking later. We want to measure the success of this optimization that we're doing on the site. So whether it's personalization, whether it's A/B testing, whatever we're doing to try and move a user through an experience and get them to that conversion, we use page events and goals. So page events are more sort of steps along the journey. Goals are really where they typically represent more of a BOFU activity where that is the end result of what we were trying to do, at least for that funnel. And then we track engagement value. So there's a lot of materials out there, especially through Sitecore's SBOSS, that talk about how you build a rubric for scoring engagement value, but this really helps you understand, are you being successful in this middle of funnel activity towards driving towards that conversion? And then, again, in the middle of funnel activity, we have to recognize that sometimes these interactions are happening not entirely in Sitecore. So that might be pulling a lot of our clients in the US. They still don't do a healthcare related interaction through the website. They're going to pick up a phone call and they're going to call a call center. And we want to be able to track that and understand that maybe led to something that augmented their profile, and we want to be able to pull that back and understand it. And so there's some integration that's available through Sitecore to be able to integrate with the Salesforce Sales Cloud, which is the CRM tool, as well as leveraging their Marketing Cloud, which does more of the drip campaigns and marketing that happens there. So that gets you through MoFu. Now when you move into the bottom of funnel, now they've left your site, right? So now the user is no longer on Sitecore, but we want to engage them further. That might be towards the next campaign, towards or the next objective. It might be putting them into that next funnel. But we need to somehow engage them and bring them back. And Ideally, they just come back on their own, but we actually need to engage with them through things like Email Experience Manager or on other sites with products like Federated Experience Manager. So EXM allows you, of course, to create email based on Sitecore content, segment and personalize that email based on what you know about that user, so we can give a very targeted email to that user. We can drive you loyalty through these email campaigns, bring them back, as Paul mentioned, for that secret sale or for that next action, and drive them towards that next funnel, that next purchase. And maybe they downloaded the white paper now, and now we need them to run the demo, right? And so we need to move them towards that next step in the funnel. With that comes campaign automation. So in Sitecore 9, there's a robust way to move between email and web interactions through marketing automation. And the marketing automation that you can do here starts to allow you to move somebody through this funnel, especially when it's moving off the site and we're trying to bring them back. And then this happens a lot for us. I think it's common in a lot of industries that you have legacy systems, whether that's the actual commerce system, or whether it's a billing system, or whatever it is, that you end up leaving the Sitecore experience for some part of the later interaction. So now I'm logged into an application, I'm sort of off, and now you've lost track of me. But maybe that next step to engage is, we want to engage with them, and yet they're not on Sitecore, but they're on a web property. And so the Federated Experience Manager allows us to drive content to those third-party sites, but also track what's happening there and declare goals and wins when things happen on those third-party sites. So yeah, this is Paul. I'll pass back over to you.
So with that, as we mentioned, we wanted to leave you with some way that you could stimulate the right kind of conversation. And I mentioned at the beginning approaching journeys with more of an Agile mindset. So here are the concepts that are largely foreign to marketing departments. You could ask them, what's the story we're trying to tell? And actually get stories to teach them how to break stories down. I mean Agile stories, not bedtime stories, right? So marketing likes to tell lots of complicated stories, and they'll want to tell big stories, but actually breaking it down and saying, what are those little experiences? The concept of minimum viable product, while very familiar to those of us with the developer background, does not exist in a lot of other disciplines. So it's just with the client and spend a day with them, really working with them on Agile mindset and getting them to change the way they worked. And they realized when we introduced the concept of minimum viable product, they resisted. They said, but we have this great idea, and if I don't deliver the entire idea, I've failed. And we said, no. Break the idea down into parts and deliver one of those parts really successfully. And then you'll build credibility for the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And that concept was so foreign to them. Finally, the CMO admitted that she had taken this project, which was going to be really, really simple, and had added 3, 4, 5 months to it because she didn't understand this whole concept. So if you can train your clients or your marketing partners in minimum viable product and actually force them to say, what's above the line, what's below the line? Like, what do you absolutely have to have? What's a nice to have if I have the time? Then you can start to get these things moving faster, because they want to answer if you start asking the questions, how fast can we get it to market? Then they will respond differently than how complete and tell me what your vision is. And oftentimes, from a development perspective, we can write large specs that are ways to explain to someone how hard it is, as opposed to saying, if you want something fast, this is your solution, versus tell me how complicated it is and it'll be slow. And you're a logical person. You'll realize you don't want it slow. You don't want it in 6 months. I know that. But marketing people tend to go, I don't know, you're the expert, and they sign off on these big projects that become complicated. So we want to get to market fast, and then we want to ask the question, how can we iterate? What do we know now, and what might we know? And again, I think that from an Agile mindset, you can say, yep, I know 80% of it, I'm good to get started. I have a process for handling my questions. From a marketing perspective, teaching that to say, even if you don't know it, could we test it? Could we launch something small and test your assumptions behind it if you're really worried? And then the last is how can we measure to know we're successful? So what we've done is, we just sort of pulled over, what's the ideal journey to start with? It's like something this small. There's a landing page, and there's a transaction you want to get someone to. Oh, I just got a 10. Thank you, I appreciate it. They rated the meeting. He gave me a 10. Oh, 10 minutes left. That's fine. We'll wrap up. So you have a landing page, and you have a transaction, and if you actually slow someone down to say, tell me all the steps that you want. Like, what do you actually want? Do you want them filling out a survey during the transaction? Do you want them creating an account during the transaction? And you ask them questions. Then you can go and do things like pull the slide that I had about that 37% of the people drop, who drop out of shopping cart experiences because they don't like that. So you really want to get them to define what the experience they want to build and what the journey is, because that's their expertise. It's our expertise to help them fill that out. Then we can really just talk about, okay, what's the landing page? What's the goal? Let's map that out. We start small. And getting people used to thinking this way has been the challenge that we've seen. So this process is really moving us away from the building for. You tell us what you want, client. Great, we're going to build it. Here's what it is. To building with. Because to really get to journey mapping, it's something that has to transform the organization. It can't just be a thing that they sign a PO for and hope that you get it right. This is a much more intimate and involved and long-term relationship that you're setting up with your customer to be able to achieve the outcomes that they really want. So with that, we have 8 minutes for questions. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, we'll say thank you. Yes?
You mentioned demand generation.
I mentioned demand generation, yep.
And you said that it's in the middle. So can you clarify, because from my perspective, maybe this also is the very top.
Sure. So the question was, when we were talking about demand generation, and I'll just go back to this one for a minute. Why is that in the middle and not the top? It's a great question. The reason that we put it there is oftentimes in an organization, there's a group who's responsible for marketing, who people think of as nice people who are chatty, and they like to talk to them. And then there's a group of people who sell stuff. That's the demand generation people, right? And so a lot of times in organizations, marketing is not respected because it's not thought of as sales. So if you think from a funnel perspective, you need marketing at the top. I'm really simplifying this as much as I can, right? If you really want to talk about what the funnel looks like, it's, do I have it here? Oh, I've gone back way too far. Hold on, there it is. If you really want to talk about what a simplified funnel looks like, at the top they would say that's marketing, right? Marketing's job is to talk and to get people interested. The middle is where someone picks up the phone or the commerce engine. That's all in the middle. And then after is whatever loyalty program we slapped together because we had an executive who couldn't get anything else done. So we made it their problem, right? That's generally how organizations are designed. And the middle part is because the revenue is really clear. That's where a disproportionate amount of resources go. So that's why I kind of put it there. This is a way to talk to an organization. I think what you're saying is, hey, aren't you doing demand gen activities all up and down the funnel? And the answer, of course, is yes. You're not going to get everyone to convert. But if you think one of the problems that we're trying to address when we talk about journeys is you're going to have to talk to multiple parts of the organization. So I'll give you an example. So in our world, top of the funnel, marketing owns that, no question about it. Middle of the funnel, marketing in our world does not own it all. At best, they can go, hey, look, Bill, you run the call center. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to do a big campaign that's going to promise that you're going to pick up the phone in 30 seconds or less. We good? Okay, we're out of here, right? And they don't have control. So this is about organizational, how the organization is structured, and how do you make them relinquish control. When you start to put journeys in front of people, when you put something like this in front of someone and you say, it doesn't matter where we're from. I'm from marketing, Bill's from the call center, you're the executive who got in charge with loyalty because we didn't know what to do with you. We're going to sit down and we're going to design a journey because we all know we care about the customer. And we probably care about the customer because it's financially important to us. We might care about the customer because it's a mission, but we care about this. So can we get everyone to agree we're going to act in accordance with a journey because we have to change our behaviors. We have to stop interacting with each other. And you can't just make this a technical solution, because if you don't get agreement here, if I'm marketing and the website's mine, and you're the call center, you're like, I don't care, website's yours. And I go to you, I don't care, I got the keychains, whatever it is. That you have to break that thinking down, and we've come into so many problems of, it's so much now about mindset, it's not about technology. The technology problems don't exist. I mean, you couldn't do this a few years ago. The opportunity is there. Organizations don't know how to take advantage of it, and I think that's the opportunity of being a service provider. Yep, question in the back.
I have a question about Agile, where Agile way of working was wonderful. You said
Yep.
at the beginning that you're supposing your customers to go like Agile way of working.
Yep.
And how do you convince them? Because it's not clear way and not
Yep.
visual way.
So the question was, we mentioned at the beginning that most of this work used to be waterfall, and now we're talking about Agile. How do we get organizations to work with us in a more Agile manner? Do you want me to take a swing at it and you can come in? Some of it is we had to change our entire process, so we went fully Agile. When you start to go fully Agile, you realize that you expose yourself to the client, and you have to defend decisions that you make to the client. In order to make better decisions, we had to train our entire team on what the client wanted. So developers actually had to change their mindsets as well. So it started with us. That's our story. The reason why I'm seeing that it's so important is if you want to get at a customer journey, you can spend 6 months designing 8, 10 personas and delivering nothing, or you can spend 1 month focusing on one persona that's really small and show progress. And if you can convince a marketing team to look good, because generally they don't, if you can convince a marketing team that they can do something that looks good, they like that, because that's what they're motivated by. They're motivated by visible, measurable, tangible success.
But how you can make the client start working this way?
How do we convince them?
When you're inside the process.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like when you're at the beginning.
Yeah. So I took my answer. I'll let you.
Yeah, I think that there are different parts of, usually when people hear Agile, that one of the biggest risks that clients hear in that is money, right? They hear I don't know what I'm going to get and how long it's going to take. I don't know that that necessarily has to be a part of working in an Agile way with a client. So I think for us, it can be, we sort of know what we're going to deliver in terms of time frame, in terms of sprints that we're going to deliver pieces. I think more it's about doing small pieces that get out to production quickly and show value. I think that's the most critical part that drives change inside of an organization, regardless of how it gets paid for. I think even for organizations that are entirely doing this internally, doing that in an Agile way just starts to show results, and it actually builds discipline and competency in these types of iterative approaches that if you're doing 9-month-long projects, you just never get, because by the time it launches, it's sort of irrelevant. Like you've lost the window on what you learned.
How about this? If you want to talk, just in the interest of time, I want to take 1 or 2 more questions. Happy to talk to you after the break. Sound good? Okay, great. 1 or 2 more questions. Yep.
A couple of questions that are maybe related. One is, healthcare is one of those sort of purchases or buying journeys which are usually quite short. They're not all over the place, and you're going to keep coming back again and again.
Well, healthcare journeys are short. Hold on. Let me just pull up a chair. I want to hear about this. I've run a company for 14 years on it, so please tell me. This is good. I'm so glad I came to give this talk. Tell me. Yeah, we'll have a go ahead, Paul. Lay it on me.
So what are your top 3 tips?
Yeah.
And the second one was, where does A/B testing fit into your Agile approach?
Great question. So in addition to maybe insulting my life's work, this young gentleman was saying, do we have any tips and any A/B testing?
A/B testing, I guess from my perspective, I don't see it that different than personalization in the end. I think that personalization, you're doing something because you know something, so you can segment the user in some way. A/B testing is that same thing, but you're segmenting you're segmenting somewhat randomly, right? Like you're grouping into 2 different sections and trying to drive one solution versus another. So we use them in the same part of the funnel, I would say. I think that there's a need, usually when it's untested, sort of new content, new ideas, we do more A/B testing. When we know more about that user, we tend more towards personalization, but I feel like they're very comparable tools.
We use Health Analyzer,
Mm.
where those opportunities lie.
Yeah, I guess I'll say something that we haven't used Path Analyzer much. I think for us, we spend a lot of time overlaying Sitecore's data and Google Analytics data, and I think that for us, the Path Analyzer, we get more out of what we do with Google Analytics in part because it spans across a number of different campaigns and some retargeting we're doing. That's a little bit more helpful for us, but so I can't speak of the Path Analyzer piece.
Okay, last question from Bill from the call center up front. Yes, go ahead, Bill.
What we see typically across an organisation is siloing.
Yes.
So the various parts of that funnel are generally broken up amongst the departments.
Yep.
My question is, what is your recommended approach regarding getting a pan-organisational understanding of the process you want to implement in most organisations?
Okay, I want to shake your hand for using pan-organizational at us very seriously. So the question is, how do you get an organization to work together? When you start to build one of these journey maps, it depends on who are the constituents that you have in the room. So the simplest way to do it is whoever's charged with this initiative. So there's an initiative usually that starts with, we want to create journeys or personas, however it starts. Who's in the room and has a say on this is important. And then you make them a participant in doing some kind of exercise like card sorting or something that gets them on their feet, gets them talking, so they feel like they're contributing. And when people contribute, they have ownership. And when they have ownership, they're less likely to derail a pan-organizational project because there's generally politics in organizations and resistance to organizational change. So a lot of it is using this as an excuse for organizational change. And the reason you can use this as an excuse is because there's measurable dollars at the end of it. And organizations will respond to this. If you can say, we're going to improve something, here are the measurables, and it's going to have a positive financial impact to the organization. I'll say thank you very much. We really appreciated the time. Dan and I will be here. Feel free to come and chat with us. And as always, oh, come on.